folks, welcome to the Chicago Burlington and Quincy Railroad and the Chicago and Northwestern Railway in Wyoming. Today is November 3rd, 2025, and this is Layout Update number 72. I'm Mark Pruitt, Riverton section hand. In October, I built, installed, and wired the new dispatcher's panel and finished the office itself. That took the first half of October. On October 21st, I hosted an operating session with a record 12 people in attendance. The train room got pretty crowded. After the session, I ran yet another 150 feet or so of thermostat wire for a new set of signals and modified the dispatcher's panel accordingly. Over the last few days, I found time to add a few boxcars to the layout. By the way, Rich, this shirt's for you. Last month I had the dispatcher's panel graphic printed, and I finished building the frame for the panel in the new dispatcher's office. After using the graphic with the bug in it to mark all the holes that needed to be drilled, I piloted all of them. Then, stepping up through several intermediate drills, I opened the holes to their final sizes. I designed the panel to be a sandwich of masonite for a back, thin galvanized steel on top of that, then the graphic to cap it off. The steel was used so that magnetic labels could be used to mark train positions on the panel. I used a small framing hammer to flatten the slight deformations around the holes in the steel. I would have used my ball peen hammer, but I couldn't find it. Next step was to cut the holes in the graphic to full size. I sandwiched it between the steel and masonite, added a few components to make sure everything was in the correct position, then used an X-Acto with a number 11 blade to carefully cut out each hole in the graphic. Here's how the graphic looked after the holes were all cut. The big hole on the far right, the fuzzy one next to staging, was the first one I drilled. I had everything stacked up just as it would be assembled when I did that hole. When I saw how the graphic was being chewed up by the drill is when I decided to cut out the remaining holes later. The rest of the holes came out real clean thanks to that decision. I planned to use one of the bug-free copies of the panel graphic for the face of the panel, but when I went to cut the holes out in the graphic, the new graphic didn't line up with the holes in the masonite and steel. The graphic was just a bit bigger than the one I'd used as a template. So now I have a dispatcher's panel with a bug in it. Oh well, we'll just call it character. After all the switches were installed holding the panel together, I clamped it in place on the frame in the dispatcher's office. On the 6th, I installed all the LEDs in the panel. Sorry for the slight fuzziness of the work being done. The stupid camera focused on a shirt sleeve, not the panel. After the LEDs were installed, I permanently mounted the panel in the frame. For that, I used the same screws and finishing washers I used to mount fascia. The easy part was done. Now I had to wire this beast. I had to crawl into that tight space behind the panel and connect everything up. Here's progress as of October 11th. The top row, the Cody branch, and the second row, the C&W Plus staging yard, were wired in. I tested as I went. Here the top 2 rows are powered. I'd work under the stairs for an hour or a bit more at a time. I could sit on a small step stool, but after about an hour my legs were getting numb and I had to climb out for a break. If I was lucky, I could manage 2 work sessions a day. I took this video of some of the early work on the lower row. First, I'm installing the common wire for the panel LEDs. Here you can see I'm tying the Whirland and Thermopolis cables from the layout into the barrier strips for the panel switches. Then I moved on to the Shobon and Powder River cables. Then came Casper and Douglas. I was pushing myself to get finished as I had an operating session coming up on October 21st, and I'd be busy for a few days just before that. After the cables were all connected, I wired in all the LEDs and switches. It's now the 13th. This is the finished back of the panel. It had taken over 10 hours to wire. And here's the fully functional front of the panel. In this view looking down the aisle along Casper, you can see several of the now functional signals on the layout. The new dispatcher's panel was ready for the session. Here's a shot of the now completed dispatcher's office. Kevin put together the train order log and small order forms you see on the desk. I added the high-resolution logos and had the forms printed out at FedEx office. Steve donated a section of countertop to be the desk itself. 8 days after completing the panel, the layout had been cleaned, manifest generated, and trains prepared. After a pre-operation briefing to let everyone know about the inclusion of a dispatcher and the train order signals at the stations, we got started. Dave agreed to be our inaugural dispatcher. I think he was really pleased to accept the honor. Some things went good and some not so good. We learned a lot, and for the first time Casper wasn't a bottleneck. The controlled train movements were working. As I mentioned in the intro, we had a total of 12 people at the session, a record. That's probably one or two more people than we really have room for. When I was designing the panel, I forgot to take into account this switch just outside of Powell that leads to East Staging. Taking Dave's advice, I named the switch Franny, which is where the real Cody branch takes off from the main line headed westward to Laurel, Montana. I added the appropriate label to the panel face. The signal would have to wait. That worked out well except for one thing. On the layout, the switch takes off from the Cody branch to East Staging, whereas in real life, it takes off from the Cody branch to the west. That confused the heck out of Dave. I blame him for that. It was his idea after all. But after the session, I renamed the location. Franny was too confusing. Since it doesn't represent a real connection on the railroad, I needed something unique. What I came up with was Einnarf. That's Franny backwards, perfect for the backward staging connection on the layout. We'll see how that goes at the next session in March. By October 28th, I added the new signal installed at Einnarf and modified the panel with the new switch and indicators. The only other thing I managed to do for the entire month, just in the last couple of days, is add 2 boxcars to the layout. I have 2 more that are almost ready, but they still need some weathering. They'll be added in a day or two. So ended October of 2025. The operating session was the big highlight, and it went well. My thanks to Dave, Kevin, and Steve for their suggestions and their help in putting together the new operating scheme. I'm not sure what I'll tackle in November. I may ballast the main line past Powder River. I might work on the Cody branch some more, or I might finally begin installing that Central Valley Truss Bridge over the Paposia River and begin laying track into Lander. Or I may work on the Wind River Canyon scenery a bit. I haven't done anything at all on that this year. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next month. In late 2012, I made preparations to begin layout construction on version 3 of the layout in Allendale, South Carolina. In early 2013, construction commenced. Some of the work went very quickly. I had become part of a round-robin group of modelers in the Charleston area. We helped each other with layout construction and met to run trains on layouts that were operational. Here's the first get-together at my house in late March. By late April, track was being laid in the area around the Laurel engine facility. Laurel Yard and engine terminal were to be very elaborate on this layout. In June, the crew was back again, and we set up more bench work. Track laying for Laurel Yard was about to commence in earnest. And that's the way it was, the first half of 2013. Thank you and good night from all of us at CB&Q News.